Close your eyes for a moment and picture the earth long, long before you were ever born, before the cities, before the farms, before a single human footprint had ever marked the ground. For hundreds of millions of years, this was a planet that belonged entirely to the animals. They lived here, they loved here, they ruled every forest and every ocean and every windswept plain, without a single one of us to be seen. It is almost impossible to imagine, and yet it is the simple truth. For nearly all of history, the animals had this whole world completely to themselves. So what were they doing in all those endless ages before we ever arrived? How did they live and love and survive without us? And what happened at long last on the day that everything changed? Stay with me to the end. Let us begin. Try to truly picture it. A world without a single road, a single fence, a single light burning in the dark. Just endless forest and open grassland and rivers running wild and free. This was the world for an unimaginable stretch of time. Long before there were any people to name them, there were animals beyond all counting. Great herds thundering across plains that had never known a human eye. Birds filling skies that no aircraft had ever crossed. Creatures in the deep oceans, on the high mountains, in every corner of the earth, going about their ancient lives. We tend to think of the natural world as something that exists around us, at the edges of our own human story. But the truth is very nearly the other way around. For almost the entire history of life, there was no human story at all. There was only theirs. The animals were not waiting for us to arrive. They were not incomplete without us. They had a whole rich, thriving world of their very own, and it had been turning for ages upon ages before we ever opened our eyes. So who then was truly in charge of this ancient world? The answer is, in a sense, everyone and no one at all. There was no king of the animals, no ruler sitting upon a throne. Instead, there was something far older and far wiser, a great and delicate balance. The mighty predators, the big cats and the wolves and the bears kept the vast herds moving and healthy. The herds, in their turn, shaped the very land itself, grazing the plains and spreading the seeds of the grasses. Every creature, from the very largest to the very smallest, had its own place in an intricate web that had taken millions of years to weave. Nothing was ever truly in control, and yet everything worked in a way that our own world can only envy. Long before humans ever dreamed of building an empire, the animals had built something far more magnificent. A living, breathing kingdom, ruled not by force, but by the ancient and perfect logic of nature itself. Whole dynasties of creatures rose and fell across this great stage, each in its turn. Giants once walked the earth and then vanished. New wonders rose to take their place. Age after age, the cast of characters slowly changed, but the great performance itself never once stopped. The world simply kept on living and dying and being born again in an endless, magnificent rhythm that needed no audience. And within that great kingdom, the animals were doing something that just might surprise you. Because they were not simply surviving. They were communicating, cooperating, living together in ways of astonishing richness and depth. Long before the first human word was ever spoken, the world was already full of language. The songs of whales, traveling for miles beneath the waves. The calls of birds, warning of danger or singing for a mate. The intricate dances of bees, telling one another exactly where to find the sweetest flowers. Wolves hunting as a perfectly coordinated team, each one knowing its role without a single sound. Elephants rumbling to one another in tones so deep that human ears cannot even hear them. The animal world was never a silent one. It was, and it still is, alive with conversation, with cooperation, with the constant, intricate business of living together. And they cared for one another too. They raised their young with tenderness. They protected the weakest among them. They mourned their dead. All of this long, long before a single human being was ever there to see it. And here is perhaps the most touching truth of them all. Love, that great and tender thing we so often imagine to be uniquely our own, was alive and well in the world long before we were. The deep devotion of a mother to her young is not a human invention. It is one of the very oldest forces on earth. For countless ages, animal mothers have nursed and guarded and taught and grieved for their children, exactly as they still do today. Some creatures found a single mate and stayed faithfully beside them for the whole of their lives. Great families and herds moved together across the generations, the old ones guiding the young. Wisdom passed quietly down through the ages. Bonds of loyalty, of friendship, of family, all of it flourished across the earth for millions of years before the first human heart ever beat. So, when we look at the love in our animals today, we are not looking at something they once learned from us. We are looking at something far older and far deeper than humanity itself. It was there in the wolf that would not abandon its wounded mate. It was there in the elephant herd that would gather, in silence, around one of its fallen. It was there in the bird returning, year after year, to the very same partner. The world was full of devotion long before there was ever anyone to write a single poem about it. Love did not begin with us. We simply arrived, rather late, into a world that already knew it well. And if this is filling you with wonder the way that it is filling me, take a moment to tap that like button below. It truly helps these gentle journeys reach more people who love the natural world just as you do. And then, after all of those countless ages, something entirely new appeared upon the earth. Us. At first, we were just one more creature among the many, small and vulnerable, finding our way in a world that had belonged to the animals since the very dawn of time. But then came a single moment that would change everything for them and for us forever. Picture it. A cold night, tens of thousands of years ago. A small group of early humans huddled close around a fire. And there, just beyond the circle of light, a pair of glowing eyes in the darkness. A wolf. For a very long time, wolves and humans had simply kept their distance from one another. But some of those wolves, perhaps the boldest of them, or perhaps the most gentle, began to creep a little closer, to the warmth and to the scraps of food the fire seemed to promise. And the humans, rather than driving them away, chose to let them come. Night after night, the distance between us grew a little smaller. And there, in that flickering firelight, in that quiet meeting of two very different creatures, the most extraordinary friendship in the history of the world was quietly beginning. It was a bargain, of a kind, though neither side could ever have known it at the time. And like all bargains, it came with a cost, and with a gift. For the wolf who chose to come closer, and for all the animals who would one day follow, something was given up. The boundless freedom of the wild. The right to answer to no one but themselves. Slowly, over many thousands of years, the wild wolf became the dog dozing by our feet, and its life was no longer entirely its own. But look at what was gained in return. Safety from the cold and the hunger and the endless dangers of the wild. A warm and sheltered place to sleep. A full and reliable belly. And something that none of them could ever have expected. Love. A bond with another kind of creature entirely, so deep and so devoted that it would echo across all the ages to come. They traded away a measure of their wildness, and in exchange, they were welcomed into our homes and into our very hearts. Whether or not it was a fair trade, each of us may decide for ourselves. But there is no denying that it changed both of our worlds completely and forever. And it did not end with the wolf. In the ages that followed, one creature after another would step out of the wild and into our lives. The wildcat that wandered into the very first grain stores and stayed to become the cat upon our windowsill. The horse and the cow and the humble sheep. One by one, the animals came in from the wild, and the world we know today, a world shared between our two very different kinds, slowly and quietly came to be. And yet, for all that has changed, the ancient world is not truly gone. It lives on, quietly, inside the animals we love today. Watch your dog turn in 3 careful circles before it lies down to sleep, and you are watching a wolf, tens of thousands of years ago, flattening the tall grass to make its bed. Listen to howl at the wail of a distant siren, and you are hearing the call of the pack, echoing all the way down through the ages. Watch your cat stalk a small toy across the floor, its body held low, its eyes fixed and wild. And you are seeing a hunter that has never once forgotten the ancient plains. The wild has never truly left them, not really. Beneath the soft fur and the gentle eyes, in every single one of our beloved companions, there still beats the heart of a creature from that old, untamed world. It is a strange and beautiful thing to share our sofas with a little piece of the ancient wilderness. To reach down and stroke the fur of a creature whose ancestors ran free beneath a sky with no cities at all. They carry it with them always, a quiet and secret memory of a time when the whole of the earth was theirs and theirs alone. So what did animals do before humans? The answer, in the end, is very nearly everything. They lived and they loved. They built families and kingdoms and a world of breathtaking beauty and balance. They sang and they hunted and they raised their young and they mourned their dead, for hundreds of millions of years, entirely without us. And this, perhaps, is the most beautiful thought of all, because it means that when the animals finally came to us, gathered around that ancient fire, they did not come because they needed us. They had never once needed us at all. For an eternity before we ever arrived, they had thrived entirely on their own. And so, when that first wolf stepped out of the darkness and chose to sit beside us, it was not the desperate act of a creature with nowhere else to go. It was something far more wondrous than that. It was a choice. Out of a whole wild world that had always been more than enough for them, they turned and they chose us. And every dog that rests its head in your lap, and every cat that curls up at your side, is the living echo of that ancient, extraordinary choice. They did not need us. They chose us. And there has never been a greater gift in all the long history of the world. If this has touched your heart today, then you have felt the wonder of that ancient bond we still carry with us. So tell us, in the comments below, when you look at your own animal, can you ever catch a glimpse of the wild creature it once was, in a certain look or a movement or a sound? We would truly love to hear it, and we read every single one. There is nothing more moving than this community sharing the deep and ancient love we share with the animals in our lives. And if you would like more gentle journeys into the hidden lives and the long history of the animals we love, then subscribe and stay close, because there is so much more waiting just ahead. Thank you for being here with us today. And tonight, when you look at the creature beside you, remember the whole wild world it came from and the choice it made to be with you. To them, you are the whole world.